Hello and welcome to another episode of the Football Nerd. And yes, I do have my Stoke top on today, but there's no bias because Stoke have had nothing to do with the Championship for a few years. I've not really paid much attention to the Championship since Stoke were promoted all those years ago. But last season I started to pay more attention, started to watch Championship games on Friday night and Saturday morning on Sky, and I've become more into the league. I've started to look at the results as well as the Premier League results, and I started to bet on the league as well. I earned quite a few quid betting on the Championship last season because it's such an unpredictable league and anyone can beat anyone. So in this episode I'm going to preview the Championship with my table prediction for next season. So I'm going to do a 60-second review of every club in the Championship in descending order from 1st to 24th. So I've gone for Hull to finish first. They're amongst the favourites to go up either through the automatic places or the playoffs, so why not go for Hull to win it? I think Bruce is the right man for the job. Asim Halam has great faith in him, and it's deserved as well. Steve Bruce won promotion the last time they were in the Championship by coming second, but they look even better this time round, having gone straight down from the Premier League and have kept the majority of the team that almost kept them up. Last season was disappointing for Hull, especially with them spending 36 million in net transfer spend last season, but we'll start to see the value of last season's signings in the Championship, who will be very good in the Championship, I think. I think Nikica Jelavic could be the league's top goal scorer if they keep him beyond deadline day. Jelavic's injury, when they needed him most last season, was a big blow for them, but he's back now and should be banging in the goals. And I think it'll be neck and neck between the two North East clubs, Hull and Middlesbrough, for first place, but I think Hull might just edge it with their Premier League quality, although Aitor Karanka has had another successful summer of business, with their highest profile signing and arguably the highest profile signing of the Championship in Stuart Downing from West Ham, who was signed for his boyhood club, hoping that they'll return to the Premier League after a 7-year absence. In that time he's played for 3 different Premier League clubs and earned 26 caps for England. So Karanka and his attractive attacking side look well placed to go one better than last season's playoff final loss, favourites to go up alongside Derby and Hull. So no Bamford, no bother is the message from the Borough camp, with Blackburn striker Jordan Rhodes looking likely to replace him. I've gone for Ipswich to finish third. I think they'll have another solid season. They got better and better as last season went on. Reached the playoffs. Norwich were probably deserving winners of the playoffs, but Ipswich will be back next season and it could be their turn. Mick McCarthy has done it all before in this league. He's reached the Premier League with his last 2 clubs, Sunderland and Wolves. He's brought along with him perhaps 4 of his best players from those 2 clubs in Luke Varney, Christophe Berra, Daryl Murphy and Stephen Hunt. He's improved this Ipswich side in the same way he built his previous 2 clubs, with 4 big strong men at the back and with 3 proven goal scorers in last season's top goal scorer Daryl Murphy, Freddie Sears and David McGoldrick, so they won't be short of goals. Brentford are also a team that I'm 90% certain will make the playoffs again. Tony Warburton did a great job last season, but his differences with the owner led to him being sacked, much to the scrutiny of many football fans who wanted him to do really well in the playoffs. But they've got a new man in Dutch manager Die Kuzen, and he did well in the Dutch league. Aitor Karanka has proven that foreign managers can cut it in the Championship, so we'll be expecting more of the same from last season and maybe even a strengthened side with 11 men in. They've done really well in the transfer market, considering the size of the club and the transfer funds available. Josh McEachran for 750k from Chelsea could turn out to be the signing of the summer. So I hope to make a few more quid betting on Brentford next season. Derby are odds on to finish in the top 6 despite missing out on the playoff places last season. Steve McLaren drew too many games for them to finish in the top 6, drawing 14 games in total. Otherwise they could have been promoted in the automatic places or at least through the playoffs. They'll be even better under Paul Clement next season, who worked under Carlo Ancelotti as Real Madrid's assistant manager last season. He has experience of working with some of the best managers at Chelsea, and he'll definitely progress the team into one that could compete in the Premier League. And they'll definitely score a few goals next season with Chris Martin and Darren Bent firing in the goals. They scored 85 goals in total last season, which is the tally of a team that could win promotion. They have their critics, but I think QPR will be there or thereabouts next season. They were back at the first attempt last time they were relegated from the Premier League, and I think they're in with a chance of doing the same this season. They've had a big clear out. They've got rid of the deadwood, the likes of Bobby Zamora, Joey Barton and Sean Wright-Phillips, and they've got some decent players that will do well in the Championship for them, so they'll be in contention with a playoff place if they avoid that points deduction for financial unfair play. They owe the Football League 50 million for their net transfer spend being over their net income. They could be relegated from the Football League if they fail to pay off the money, so I think they'll end up with a 15-point deduction and will drop out of the playoff places. Wolves were unlucky to miss out on the playoffs last season, level on points with Ipswich and Brentford above them, and they have everything Brentford don't, with 2 prolific goal scorers in Benik Afobe and Nua Dicko, and Kenny Jackett is a reliable manager, having taken over when they were in League One, and you just wonder what a team they'd be if they'd have kept hold of their best players and stayed in the Championship rather than being relegated. And I think they'll just miss out on the playoffs pending QPR's points deduction. If anyone is to benefit from QPR's deduction, then it will be Wolves. Wolves will be the team to watch next season as underdogs to gain promotion through the playoffs, even if they finish 7th. I've gone for Burnley to finish 8th, able to grind out results like they did 2 seasons ago in order to earn promotion, but they'll have to do it without their best player of last season and the player who helped them to promotion, Danny Ings, and of course their captain Kieran Trippier, who's gone to Spurs. They've signed Jelle Vossen from Genk as Danny Ings' replacement, who scored 7 goals for Middlesbrough last season, but won't be able to produce the same goals tally Danny Ings would be expected to get in the Championship for them. So I think an 8th place finish, a mid-table finish for Burnley is accurate. Newly relegated clubs tend to finish around 10th in their return to the Championship. I think Cardiff were better than last season. Their owner Vincent Tan obviously doesn't know a lot about football. He's made some dubious managerial decisions over his time at the club. But Russell Slade has been a good appointment and probably advised by people around him. And he helped Cardiff to a top-half finish last season. And with a full season at the club next season, he'll hope to do even better. It's also his first summer at the club. Slade has only signed 1 player so far, but this summer is less about signing players and more about cutting the squad size. It was a huge squad in the Premier League. still has some quality players to work with, which comes with playing in the Premier League, and I think they'll be better than last season. Sheffield Wednesday might be the surprise package next season. Last season they didn't concede many goals. They had the third best defence in the league, conceding 49 goals, but they didn't score many either. Their 43 goals was the worst of any side outside the relegation area. But the new manager Carlos Carvajal will hope to change that. He's brought with him a foreign influence, which means they'll play a more attacking brand of football. Milan Mandaric has steadied the ship financially and has enabled the funds to sign some quite high-profile players for a championship club. Carvajal has brought with him 3 defenders from some of Europe's top leagues who will get them playing out from the back, and Sheffield Wednesday should score more goals next season. Charlton will be the team to watch next season. They were much improved under Guy Luzon from January onwards last season, and Luzon has brought in 14 players this summer. 12 of those 14 are 23 or younger, so it might be too soon for Charlton to make a push for the playoff places, and their squad might be too young at the moment, but the future looks bright for them, and I'm sure they'll be in contention for the playoffs come 2 seasons. They may have lost fullback Joe Gomez to Liverpool, but they've kept hold of Johan Gudmundsson from the clutches of Premier League clubs. He was their standout performer from last season on the wing and was consistent from January onwards. For Birmingham to finish 12th. Last season was a relatively stable one for them. They've kept their manager and only had 10 ins and 7 outs in the transfer market this summer. But I'm sure they'll get a few loan moves in by transfer deadline. And I think it's more of a hindrance than a help to them being so close geographically to so many big clubs in the Premier League, like Man City, Man United and Stoke in recent years. I think getting so many loan players from them disrupts the progress of the team, because they might have a decent season breaking into the starting 11, and then they're gone back to the parent club in the summer, and they've lost their goalkeeper, their first choice goalkeeper, Darren Randolph, to West Ham, which would be a big loss for them. Bristol can finish as high as 13th. I was going to have them down as a surprise package for next season, but I've seen that a few other people have them to finish comfortably in mid-table, so it won't be as surprising for them to do well next season. Obviously the League One champions and the best of 3 good promoted sides from that division. MK Dons have a very good attack, Preston have a very good defence, but Bristol have both of those, so I think they'll do the best of the 3 sides that come up. A defence tutored by Steve Cotterill and led by last season's star performers in League One, Aidan Flint and Luke Ayling, only conceded 38 goals, which was the best in the league, and was the main reason why they amassed 99 points. Reading are the best of a bad bunch. I think they'll be the most improved team in the league in the upcoming season. It's very easy to look at their 19th place finish and write them off completely, but I think there's more to them than we saw at the back end of last season when Steve Clarke took over. I think he'll benefit from having a whole pre-season to spend with his players. I think halfway through the season is always a bad time to take over, and he was still finding his best team towards the end of last season. And he's made some good signings this summer. Although he's far from finished in his transfer business, I'm sure he'll get a couple of loanees from his old club Chelsea thrown in. He's already signed Stephen Quinn and Paul McShane from Hull for free, and he's already talking about Paul McShane as his potential captain for next season. I think the top half might be beyond Reading, but a steady mid-table season is what they need. I don't think Blackburn will do as well as last season's ninth. They only scored 66 goals last season, and they could score even less in the upcoming season without goals from Joshua King, who's moved to Bournemouth, Rudy Gestede, who's gone to Aston Villa, and it's likely that Jordan Rhodes will also leave. And they've only replaced those two players with Leon Best, who has struggled to score goals at any of the three clubs he's been at on loan over the past 2 seasons. He didn't score any goals for Brighton last season either. Jordan Rhodes and Rudy Gestede got 41 goals in the league between them, which is well over half of the club's total. So if Jordan Rhodes leaves, you really struggle to see where the goals are going to come from. So I think Blackburn could finish 14th. Forest are a team that didn't struggle for goals last season. Their 71 goals was the best of any mid-table club, but they lost their main striker, Britta Sombolonga, through injury in February, and he'll be out until at least the new year, so he'll be a big miss for them. It's time for Dexter Blackstock to really step up and fire in the goals for them. Otherwise, I can see them really struggling. A lot of people don't rate Goody Friedman. He's not a very experienced manager, and they were contenders for promotion when he took over at Bolton, but not when he left. They're a club that can't even afford decent championship players. Their last marquee signing was Marlon Harewood a few years ago, which tells you all you need to know. And I think they'll struggle again, and another bottom half finish is on the cards. I've put Fulham in the same category as Blackburn and Nottingham Forest, who are average teams that will be lucky that there are worse sides in the division than them. They're a selling club, having lost another 3 of their better players this summer, losing Hugo Rodallega, Brian Ruiz and Patrick Roberts. And the worrying thing for them is that their best player is Scott Parker, who is now 34. They are a selling club, which isn't a bad thing because money gets pumped into the club, but it's what they do with that money that counts, and there's no point investing in the youth academy because Chelsea will always nab the best young talent in the area, and if they don't, then the likes of Man City will. You do worry for them. I think they're going in the wrong direction and slipping down the table year on year. Bolton's plummet to the lower echelons of the Championship after relegation from the Premier League is almost as sudden as Fulham's. Neil Lennon is trying to forge a revival to stop them going down another division, but the financial problems will mean they will be somewhere down there with the smaller clubs again. Such is their lack of spending money, Bolton fans have clubbed together to try and fan fund a move for Cardiff striker Adam Le Fondre, who was their star man last season on loan. The last time I looked, the saving fund was yet to reach 1,000 though, and they need 500k to sign the striker. Relegated Premier League clubs with poor ownership and not much spending power is a recurring theme in the bottom half of the table, and Leeds and now Bolton are the best examples of that. Selling fan favourite and local hero Kevin Davis and replacing him with Emile Heskey says a lot about the ambition of the club. I'm backing MK Dons to survive, with them scoring over 100 goals in League One last season, but scoring past Championship defences will be more difficult, and their defence isn't great, so they'll be hoping Matthew Upson can strengthen it. Dons will be sure to give us some high-scoring games next season, and they scored a lot of goals towards the end of last season and in pre-season against, albeit some non-league clubs. So they're in good form going into the new season. It's their first season in the Championship, so we don't really know what to expect from MK Dons, but I think they can win a few games and keep themselves up under Carl Robinson, who can talk a good game as well. I'm a big fan of his radio station in Off the Bar, so I want him to do well next season. I've gone for Leeds to finish just above the relegation area. A lot of people might be surprised to see them that far down, but I'll imagine them being down there all season. When the talk is Leeds, a big club is the term that comes to mind, and they used to be the second biggest club in the northwest behind Man United, but this is 15 years ago now. It's important to talk about Leeds, the current football team, and not have your view tainted by Leeds, the historic football club. The problem they have is attracting quality players. Given the choice, players would prefer to sign for smaller clubs with more ambition like Brentford than Leeds, who are a big club with very little ambition. They had 5 different managers last season and won just one of their last 8 games, and they're another club failing to meet financial fair play rules, so it'll be another difficult season on and off the pitch for Leeds. Huddersfield are favourites to go down, but I think they'll just about stay up. Their manager Chris Powell is a very experienced defender at the top level, but he is an inexperienced manager. Charlton was too big of a club to start his managerial career at, so that was never going to work out. In a way, being relegated might be a learning curve for him and will give him a chance to rebuild the club in an easier league, and that's where they look to be heading for much of last season. I still think he'll make them organised at the back like so many ex-defenders do, and goals from Nahki Wells, James Vaughan and Sean Scannell will be enough to keep them up. They're only 4 to 7 to stay up, so there are no obvious relegation candidates despite them being widely tipped to be relegated, so I think they can just about stay up. I can see Preston narrowly missing out on survival. They'll pick up points, but the Championship will be a big test for them, and I'm sure they'll struggle after spending such a long and disappointing spell in League One. They lost some of their better players along the way as well. They tried to sign out-of-favour players in bottom half Championship clubs to replace them in order to make it back up, and one of those they got from Bolton in Jermaine Beckford was very useful in gaining promotion. However, there's a heavy burden on Beckford to get the goals, and I think they'll be over-reliant on him unless Joe Garner, the League One Player of the Year, can do as well in the Championship. And Beckford isn't a prolific goal scorer either. He's never scored over 10 goals in a Championship season, and he only netted 12 times in League One for them, with 3 of those coming in the playoff final. Brighton could easily be relegated. They were very poor last season, and were lucky Rotherham were deducted points, otherwise they wouldn't have stayed up as easily. But luck might not be on their side next season. Age certainly isn't. They have an ageing backline of Inigo Calderon, who's 33, Bruno and Gordon Greer, who are 34, and Liam Rossini, who is 30. A lot of pacey strikers would love to play against that defence, and it doesn't look good for them in attack either. Only Sheffield Wednesday scored less goals from all the clubs outside of the bottom 3, and Chris Hughton is desperately trying to solve his striking dilemma by panic buying 5 unproven goalscorers. Hughton has done reasonably well at every club he's been at, but he's been relegated with Norwich and could go down another division with Brighton. And it's surprisingly good odds for Brighton to go down at 10 to 1, so that's well worth a punt. Rotherham are favourites among the bookmakers at 9 to 5 to be relegated, and they might well do so. It could be another case of second season syndrome for Steve Evans' side. Their sole aim last season was to stay up, and they achieved that in sombrero-wearing style. It could have been more comfortable for them had they not been deducted 3 points for fielding an ineligible player. They would have finished just a point below Reading in 19th otherwise. But, and it is a big but, Steve Evans is working on a really small shoestring, and they've lost so many of their best players that kept them up. Players who know their days in the Championship are numbered. So they survived last season after some important wins towards the end, but I wonder what will be the goal that drives them on in the new season. So this is how I think the table will finish, and the playoffs will be very interesting. It's very difficult to decide on the bottom 3. It's a very difficult league to predict, and I'm sure I'll be wrong on a few of these. But I've tried my best, and I've been the football nerd. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to hide behind the sofa and try to avoid any Leeds fans.